Good evening, my name is Mrs. Young and I'm Head of English. In this presentation, I'll be talking about the DP Literature course, which is offered by the English Department. The English Department offers two courses at DP, English Language and Literature Combined and English Literature. English Literature is a more traditional form of study and covers literature texts from the canon of literature and more contemporary modern texts also. This is a really good course for students who want to stretch themselves in terms of their reading, who love English literature, who always have a book in their hands, and who really enjoy finding out why texts were written by certain people at certain times. It's definitely for those amongst us who are avid readers. So, similar to English Language and Literature, we offer both standard and higher for DP Literature. Standard students have 5 lessons, and you can see here that they study paper 1, which is a guided literary analysis paper, which means they have to compare 2 passages from 2 different literary forms, and each of these they'll have to analyse and then write about. We prepare students throughout the year for this unseen style of writing through the various different texts that they study with us. Paper 2 consists of 4 questions and students choose one of these. They have to write a comparative essay for this, and these are based on 2 of the works of literature that the students have already studied in the course. The students also complete an internal assessment, which is an individual oral. This is a 15-minute speech, and students have to talk about 2 different texts, one that's written in English language and the other one that's been studied from a text in translation. The speech will be 10 minutes and then 5 minutes will be questions from the teacher. It's really important that the students focus their talk around the global issues, which is integral to the success of this piece of work. So for the higher level students, they will have 7 lessons, and the main difference for the higher level students is that they will study, in addition to paper 1, paper 2 and the individual oral, the higher level essay. So this is quite a short essay, it's between 1,200 and 1,500 words, and they write about one literary text or a group of literary texts that they've studied during the course. So they have an element of freedom with regards to which text they want to talk about, and it really does give them the opportunity to write in an academic register about something that really excites them. So the key to success in English literature, DP, is really based on the students having a body of text which they know soundly. It's important that they have these so that they can apply them to the various different assessments that the exam requires. So they can use these texts to practice unseen analysis for paper 1. Obviously the texts are there which they can choose to partner up in terms of the I.O., using those 2 texts linked to the global issue, and also the higher level essay for the higher level students would be based on these texts, and paper 2 would be based on a choice of 2 of these texts. So the more texts that we can study, the more depth and breadth the students have to choose from. So it really does test their reading, and it really does widen and give them an opportunity to enjoy that reading as well. It's important, obviously, that students love reading, therefore. You can see that standard students study 9 texts, and you can see that higher students study 13 texts. There's a lot of reading to be done, but with that reading comes some fantastic discussion, analysis, and an opportunity to study themes that have transcended literature and time. So the DP Literature course is a 2-year course. Starting the course in September with how is the female perspective represented. Students will have an introduction to DP and also to the way in which the assessments work. They'll practice all components of the course throughout this unit, and they will be introduced to the way in which they need to write and the way in which they need to speak to achieve the various criterion. Moving on, after the break, students will return in January and will study Unit 2, How is Conflict Represented in Literature? At this point, the higher level students will start working on their essay. In grade 12, when students return in September, we've got 2 units, one which starts and the other which continues into the second term in January before we start to do revision. So we've got Unit 3, how is identity presented in literature, and Unit 4, how are individuals and society relevant in works of literature. Students will practice all components of the course throughout both of these units, and they will, at the beginning of the academic year, work towards completing their individual oral. As the year concludes, we will be revising and working towards Paper 1 and Paper 2 practice assessments ready for the examination. Now let's have a look at the texts that are associated with the units of work. Unit 1, the female perspectives, covers A Doll's House, Streetcar Named Desire, and Carol Ann Duffy poetry. The students who are studying for hire will study all of those, as well as Shakespeare's Hamlet. For Unit 2, Conflict in Literature, students will study The Things They Carried, Night Sky with Exit Wounds, and One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. The higher students will study all of the above, plus Yeats poetry. Unit 3, the Identity Unit, students will study Atonement by McEwen and A Handmaid's Tale for the hires. And Unit 4, we will study Zadie Smith essays, and the higher students will study Madame Bouvet. At the end of the unit, you can see at the end of the year, we've got revision of Paper 1, Paper 2, and learning how to compare and contrast those literary texts. Perhaps the most exciting thing about the DP Literature course is the flexibility that students are given in terms of choosing the text that they want to use for the assessments that they will complete. There's a really, really good flexibility here where students can choose any text to use for any aspect of assessment. The only stipulation being that for the individual oral, students must choose one text which is in translation. And we do provide them plenty of opportunities to study texts in translation. The only thing that students need to remember is that they cannot reuse one text twice. So they can't use one text for more than one part of the course. So for example, if a student is comparing a Duffy poem to Night Sky with Exit Wounds for their individual oral, they wouldn't then be able to use Duffy or Night Sky for their Part 2 examination. They also wouldn't be able to use these texts for the higher level essay. So students have to be really organised, they have to think really carefully about what they're going to pick, but they can really play to their strengths in this regard because they can choose the text which they think are going to suit them better for the assessment in terms of the criteria and the mode of assessment. As you can see, wider reading is really important here. Students will study more than just the texts that are on the set text list. We'll give them lots of opportunities for wider reading. And it really is important that they do immerse themselves in literature to really be availing of those higher criterion levels. So very often when students are making the decision about whether to take the literature DP, they ask us whether we think that they'll enjoy it and what we would recommend that they choose. The main thing that we always ask them is whether they like reading. I cannot stress enough that if students like reading, they will love this course. If they always want to find out about literature, about where it came from, about the authors that wrote it, if they don't stop at reading one text that's been asked to be read in a lesson and they read more that are associated with that text or by that author, then this is the course for them. If they don't like reading, if they read very rarely, then this wouldn't be the right choice. This is a choice that you would choose if you want to take a course at university that involves critical thinking or the study of any texts. It's a really academic choice. If you want to go on and study literature at university, this would be a really, really good option for you. So this brings us to the end of our presentation. I hope that I've been able to answer a few questions that you might have had about the literature course. On this slide, you'll see my contact details. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you.